Welcome back to the Y.E.S Functional Longevity Podcast. My to you today live from our um, exercise facility, our coaching center on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. We have had a tremendous string of beautiful weather, and I think it's going to last another day or two. So I hope that everybody is getting outside, moving along, feeling better, because I know that fresh air always feels good. I know it felt great to get out on the track Sunday afternoon and put in a nice long workout in preparation for my race. Again, it was gorgeous out. So you can see I'm not sitting at the desk today. I'm going to do a little exercise demonstration for you, and hopefully can help you to understand a little bit more about mobility and flexibility and what makes them different and what we need to do to train specifically mobility better. So we often have clients come into the facility, new clients, or even clients that have been with us for a while, and they say that they need to improve their flexibility. They're just not as flexible as they were when they're younger. Well, that could be the case, and in many cases it is flexibility, but along with that is they've lost mobility. So it's not just flexibility, mobility, and that ability of the body to move better. That is what we're really talking about here, to be able to move better. And that's what they feel that they've lost. So define mobility. Mobility is your body's ability to control itself, to control your body through a range of motion. The body's ability to control it through your range of motion, through a range of motion. Whereas flexibility is the ability of a joint to move through a range of motion. So for example, I'm going to move back here just for a second. If I take my arm up in the air, and that's as far as I can go, okay, that might be my mobility, right? But if I had someone pull on it and bring it further through its range of motion, that would be my flexibility. So you can see mobility and flexibility are two different things. This is as far as I can go mobility-wise. That's as far as my body can control it through a range of motion. Whereas when I push my arm up, I have further range of motion. So that's what the difference is, okay? And we train our muscles, okay, we train flexibility, but to really create good mobility, the ability to move better, okay, to be able to control that movement better, to feel better as we go out through our day, you have to train the nervous system. You need to train the nervous system as well. It's more than just flexibility. It's more than just getting stronger, sitting on machines and moving, okay? And we need to think about training mobility different than we think about, which some people still think about training the body like a bodybuilder, where, we're going to isolate a range, let's build my biceps, so I'm going to do some bicep curls, or, we're going to talk about glutes, okay? Let's build, get on that machine and, do that leg kick to build my glutes, okay? So that's how we're going to increase our muscle strength. It doesn't actually help increase our function, but it increases our muscle strength. And then we think about, okay, so I need to make my shoulder to move better. I need to just do some shoulder flexibility exercises. When in reality, you need to do those things. But what you need to do is you have to train your brain to be able to coordinate those movements. So we need to train the nervous system. That's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to show you a couple exercises of what I'm talking about, okay? And how you can try to incorporate it into your workouts. So you're really training the body as efficiently as you can. Because if we're going to take the time to work out, we might as well be efficient. We might as well do what we should be doing. And I've said it many times now, if you're doing what you did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago when you're in high school, you're really not doing the right thing. Unless you were super smart back then and you knew everything we know now, your program really isn't as good as it could be. So why don't you take advantage of today's technology, today's research? So everyone's mobility is a little bit different, okay? Everybody has a different level of mobility. And that's due to a couple different things. It could be different structures. And those structures could be limited to our muscles. They could be limited to soft tissue. It could be limited to our nervous system. It could be limited to structural damage from injuries. So when mobility works for one person, the mobility of one person is certainly going to be different than the mobility on another person. It kind of just makes sense, right? But I just would like to throw that out there, that one person's mobility might be great, thoracic mobility be great, but another person's thoracic mobility may be poor. And it could be not just because of one thing, it could be a few things. So we're going to keep that as mind as we go along. And a second thought to have as we go into this a little bit is less than 5% of Americans participate in 30 minutes of physical activity a day. Less than 5%. I'm talking about physical activity. I'm not even talking about exercise. I'm talking about physical activity. And 1 in 3 receive the recommended amount for a week. So it's just people, we're just not moving, right? And certainly we had the winter, shuts us down a little bit. We've had the pandemic for over a year now, kind of shut us down, put us into quarantining, okay, less activity, and all this stuff is just really making the muscles and the fascia, the tendons, everything just tighten up. So we're less flexible and we're less mobile. And when we try to fix that, stretching just isn't enough. You need to try to train the nervous system. So the flexibility might help. You might feel good when you're doing it. You might say, wow, look at how far I'm going. But if you can't, if your body doesn't have the ability to move that limb, move that joint, whatever it is, through the range of motion that you just created, then what's done? It hasn't really done anything to help you move better and feel better and perform better. So I want you to think about this. We're going to start by what we call the joint-by-joint method. Mike Boyle, the famous coach, strength and conditioning coach out of Boston, talks about this often. Excuse me. When we take a look at how the body's stacked, okay, the joints are either mobile or stable, and they alternate. So when we start with our feet, our toes are very mobile, but our foot itself is very stable. Our ankle joint, very mobile, right? But the knee joint is stable. As we work our way up the body, the hip joint is mobile, the lumbar spine should be very stable. The thoracic spine is mobile. When you get to our shoulder girdle or scapula, that's supposed to be very stable so that the shoulder joint can be very mobile. Elbow joint is stable. Wrist joint is mobile. Fingers are stable. Same thing with the cervical spine. The lower cervical spine is a little bit more mobile. Okay? The shoulder joint is mobile, stable. The lower, the cervical spine, the bottom part of the cervical spine is very mobile. The top part is very stable. So you can see that the body's stacked. Mobile, stable, mobile, stable, mobile, stable. And I've talked about this before. When a mobile joint doesn't have the mobility it should have, it's going to force a stability joint to try to do something it's not supposed to do. It's try to force the mobility, the movement that you want to occur in a joint that's not supposed to move. So if your hip joint, okay, is not as mobile as it's supposed to be, when you go to do things, when you go to be moved, when you exercise, when you're active, you're going to try to use your knee or your lumbar spine to be mobile rather than the hip joint. So now we're asking the knee or the lumbar spine to be mobile, and it's not supposed to be. Thus, it could be causing an injury, discomfort, pain, whatever it might be. So we always want to take a look at the joint above it and below it when we might have when we have a knee issue, we're taking a look at the hip and we're taking a look at the ankle. We're making sure that both of those joints have the correct mobility so that the knee doesn't have to do their job, okay? And vice versa. If the knee gets too mobile, we're going to ask the hip or the ankle to stabilize, and that's what they're not designed to do. So again, we could cause injury. So we thought for a long time, when we want to create that stability, okay, stability is a body's ability to prevent unwanted movement while allowing for wanted movement. So if we want to throw a ball, okay, this part of our core, our body, needs to be stable. It needs to be able to stabilize correctly to be able to create that movement. We thought for a long time that when we trained on unstable surfaces like on a BOSU or on a stability ball, things like that, that we were creating core strength. We were creating that stability of bracing. But in turn, really all that was doing is our nervous system was on fire. It was screaming, saying, what the heck is going on? And it was just the nervous system was trying to work to create that rather than actually building core strength, stability, and the bracing in the body. So that's really not what we need to do to help create real core strength and real stability in the body. Those type of exercises, although they look cool and they may be fun, they're not building core strength. They're not building stability. They're not building bracing. Remember, stability is the body's ability to prevent unwanted movement while allowing for wanted movement. And I'm going to show that to you in a couple exercises in a few minutes. The other thing we're going to think about here is, like, so we understand it joint by joint, mobile, stable, mobile, stable, mobile, stable. Is the core really starts from your toes all the way up to your nose, okay? And the stability that we want to create really starts with your feet, or if your hands are on the ground, with your hands. And to create true stability, that's where it all starts. You need to understand that, as we, and I'll show you again as we go through some exercises, okay? And to think about that, how the body's fascia is connected. Your lats, okay, the big V muscle in your back, attaches in your arm, and it goes all the way down to your lumbar spine, okay, way down into your glutes, and the fascia attaches to your backside, your glutes, and then that fascia attaches all the way down to your legs. So there's this big, like, posterior oblique sling that goes across the back of the body. There's one on the front of the body, the anterior sling. So the body isn't really linear. The body is connected in a diagonal in how we move it, and that's how we should move. You think about when you run, which arm is going forward while the other leg is going back. Or when you go to throw the ball, the left leg is forward and the right arm is coming forward, because they're connected. That left leg that you're pushing off of is connected to that right arm. So that's how the body is connected. So if we really want to strengthen the core, and the glutes are an important part of the core, you need to make sure that connection is occurring when you do your exercise. So again, forget about sit-ups. I haven't done a sit-up in decades because they don't strengthen the core. They're not going to help you strengthen the core. So they did some studies where they increased passive hip flexibility. So the hip flexibility, they increased it passively, okay? But it did not have a direct transfer to the activities beyond that, because all they did was increase flexibility. They did not increase mobility. They didn't make that tying together of the fascia in the system so that the body would move better. So I'm going to give you another little example here on how we really need to connect this fascia, okay? Connect these muscles all together when we're doing exercises. So the SI joint has form closures, okay? That's where the bones kind of fit together. And then it has force closures. And those force closures are created by muscles, tendons, ligaments that cross the joint. And they create this tension and stability, okay? To help stabilize the core in the SI joint. This is just one small example in the body. But if you just train the lats by doing pull downs, okay? And then you go and just train your glutes alone on, I don't even know what machines you train your glutes anymore, but if you try to train your glutes alone, there's not that connection, and it doesn't create that stiffness or that tension or that stability in the SI joint. So if we want to really create this strength in that joint, we need to make sure that when we're doing these core exercises that we are connecting the fascia, whether it's the anterior or the posterior fascia that cross in the body, okay? The lat is actually more a core muscle than it is a big V muscle in your back. That's that important. People look around my facility and they see that we don't have machines that you sit on. Even a lat pull down, we don't do seated. Why don't we do a lat pull down seated? Because as soon as you sit down, the glute is no longer attached to that lat. That connection there is not occurring. And all you're doing is working on the lats. You're not really working on the body the way it's really designed to work, to create true function. So when we talk about functional training, we're talking about the body to be able to function better. It's not some funky exercise of standing on stability balls and doing lat raises or doing things on a BOSU or anything like that. That's not functional training. Functional training is training the body to be able to function better. And that's what we're talking about here today, okay? So to help you feel a little of this, If I do it, I'm going to come outside the camera, so I'm not going to do it here. But if you would just stand up, if you're watching, I want you to stand up and put your hands on your backside, okay? And then I want you to tighten your toes. I want you to grip the ground with your toes. And as soon as you grip the ground with your toes, what's going to happen? You're going to feel that connection from your feet all the way up into your glutes. And you're going to feel your glutes, your backside tight. I'm not telling you to tighten your backside. I'm telling you to grab the ground with your feet. Grip the ground with your feet, and you're going to feel that connection all the way up into your core, even the anterior part of your core, and your backside. So it's tightening right up. So there's an example of how we're talking about when we need to create this stability, and it starts with the feet. So we're going to talk about the same thing when we get onto the ground and we do some demonstrations and exercise, how we need to grip the ground. But if you take your hand out front, okay, and you just grip it nice and tight, okay, you're going to feel your shoulder and all the way down into your lat. You're going to feel that tighten right up. So don't have your shoulder up here. Keep your shoulder down, packed a little bit, and tighten it right up. And you're going to feel everything in here tighten up. Now, if you were standing up still and you did this and you grip the ground with your feet, you'd feel that tension come all the way through your body. Now, just to say, okay, you should, whenever you're gripping a weight, you should be grabbing it tight. If you're doing a shoulder press, you should be grabbing that weight tight because you want to activate that muscular throughout your body, all the way down to the lats. You want to make sure you're turning on the rotator cuff muscles. You shouldn't just do a press, or a bench press, overhead press with an open hand. You're not building stability that way. You're building stability by grabbing that weight, okay? But in this, I just showed you this example here. Now, if you take your hand and turn your palm down and do the same thing, you don't get that same activation throughout the lats. So there's little things you need to know and understand how the body works for you to be able to program this correctly. Okay? So remember that this tension creates stability, and we need to have stability to be able to have mobility, because stability is the body's ability to keep unwanted movement. So we don't want the body to move, we want just that joint to be able to move. So here's some exercises, okay, that it's going to show you what I'm talking about. I need to move something right up here before I do that, okay? We got a bunch of stuff out here today. So the first thing we want to do is a bridge, okay? Now, if you want to do the bridge correctly, it's a great core exercise because it's going to go all the way from your toes all the way up through to my hands, all right? And we like to use the ultimate sandbag when you do this activity, because when we grip that bag in this position, we're going to get those lats turned on, and then even more so, I'm going to pull the bag apart. And when I pull that bag apart, it's really going to activate and turn on my whole back. So if you have an ultimate sandbag, you'll feel this when you do this exercise, okay? And I'm going to give you a suggestion if you don't have an ultimate sandbag. So when I get down onto the ground here, I'm going to literally grip the ground with my toes. I'm not going to just hang out here. I'm not going to get up on my heels. I'm going to grip the ground with my toes. And as soon as I do that, I'm going to feel this whole posterior chain light up. I'm going to take the bag, and I'm going to pull the bag apart. My shoulders are down, so the bag is over my belly button. I'm gripping the ground with my feet, I'm pulling this bag apart, and then I'm going to exhale hard to make sure my core is engaged. And I'm going to bridge up and bridge back down. So by gripping the ground, pulling the bag apart, I have activated all the musculature from my hand down through my backside, down all the way down to my feet. So I get a true core exercise. You might say that's easy. Well, that is a simpler bridge, but there's other exercises we can do from there. We can take it from there, and we can do a march. So when we get into this position, again, grip the ground, grip that bag, pull it apart, bring up the bridge. Now do a small march, okay? So every time I lift my foot, when I go to lift my right foot, I push down into the ground with my left foot. I grip that ground, and that keeps everything turned on. That makes it a little bit harder. We can do some other activities as well. So we have the bag up here. Grip the ground, grip the bag, pull it apart, exhale hard, bridge up, bring up one leg. Now here, and here. So notice stability, the body's ability to prevent unwanted movement. So I'm not letting the rest of my body move while allowing me to move the bag the way I wanted it to, creating some mobility. And it's this connection through the body that really strengthens the core. Now, if you don't have a sandbag, go to performbetter.com, pick one up. because they're a super great tool. Okay, they're one of the best tools that have come out in years. But until then, if you just take your hands and grip the ground with your feet and then grip the ground with your hands. So if I was to come by and try to pick up your finger, I would not be able to lift it. That's how hard you need to grip the ground. Just lay down right now and do that. And you're going to feel how everything turns on. Now perform your bridge. And you'll notice that everything is nice and tight, and you're going to get that core strength. Some of that strength I just talked about with the SI joint, okay? That's what's important. And we're really training the glutes, and we're training the lats, we're training all the musculature and the fascia together, how they're designed to work. Not just sitting on a machine, or not just getting on the leg to do donkey kicks. Because that's not how the body's really designed to work. This is how the body's designed to work. So I'm going to give you another exercise, okay? And this might look simple, but it's not. But I wanted to give you an example, another example of how we grip the ground with our hands. So I'm not going to go through the whole name of this exercise because it's kind of long. I'm going to take a little mini band, put it around the feet. If you watch what I do, I've done this exercise before. I'm going to come up into a quadruped position. Now, when I'm in my quadruped position here, I'll move my mat down some. I'm gripping the ground with my toes. As soon as I grip my ground with my toes, I turn on the posterior chain all the way up into my core. So when I talked about we do lat raises and we don't sit down on a machine, we do a lat raise in a half kneel, one knee down, or two knees down. And when we do that, we make sure that we have our toes gripped into the ground, and that turns this all on. I don't say tighten my glutes. I say dig your feet into the ground, and that automatically turns this on. So it gets the pelvis in the right position. So when we do our lat pull down, we're not just working the lats, we're working the whole posterior chain, we're working our core as well. That's efficiency. That's what makes a workout much more efficient. So we're coming down into a quadruped position. Now when I'm down here in this position and I go to bird dog, that means I'm going to raise my right arm and my left leg. Before I do that, I need to push into the ground and grip the ground with my left hand and grip the ground with my right foot. That's going to create that cross member activation and strengthening. So the bag's going to come across my lower body, right in my belly button, so I keep my shoulders down. So let me grip the ground, exhale hard to engage that core, grab that bag, and as I reach out, I'm going to slide this bag slowly, still gripping the ground, and relax. Notice I went nice and slow, because it's not about speed. It's about being able to stabilize the body while I'm trying to perform a movement. So by gripping the ground with my left hand and my right foot, I get that posterior strap, that sling turned on so I can stabilize. And then I'm attaching the right arm with the left leg, with the resistance of this band on the left leg, and the resistance on the right arm as I drag it across. So it really super exercise. It's a great core exercise. There's certainly ways to make it harder, okay? But that's what I'm talking about when I say you need to grip the ground with your feet, grip the ground with your hands. All the stability starts with these things. These are the foundations, your hands and your feet. So think about that. Think about that when you're exercising, when you're doing your exercises. And you'll get better results. You'll get better results from that. And as always, if you have any questions, contact me. You can call me, email me, stop by the coaching center. I'd be more than happy to give you some ideas on what we do. If you watch my material, you'll see other exercises where we talk about this, not in this kind of length, but we just go over the exercise and why we do what we do it, and how we do it, and what's it's not focused on strengthening the glutes. It's not focused on strengthening the lats. It's not focused on strengthening the core. It's focused on the body strengthening in its functional way, the way it's supposed to move. So that's what I have for you today. I hope it taught you something. I hope you enjoyed it. And that's it. You guys have a great night. You can look for more information on how to get fit, feel younger, better right here on the Y.E.S. Longevity Functional Functional Longevity Podcast next Tuesday at 3:30. Thank you and have a great evening.